Hello, Namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I'm your host Nagesh Deshpande. Uh, I'm bringing another episode today, and I'm very happy to bring one of my friend uh, today, and we are discussing very interesting topic today. So whenever I'll set up some context. So what happened, to the stage early stage of my career. I worked a lot of in performance testing, and when I attended few conferences, I saw one prominent name and figure in the testing industry. And then I got opportunity to meet this person, interact. So I decided to invite this person to my podcast. So today we have Harpreet Kaur Kahai, and her topic will be performance test or performance engineering in agile environment. So small intro about Harpreet. Harpreet Kaur. She has 17 plus years of experience in performance testing. Currently, she is working as a performance test architect. She developed and implemented a performance testing framework. She is very renowned conference speaker too. So let's welcome Harpreet. Yeah, Harpreet.
Hi, Nagesh. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm glad to be part of this particular series in Agile Exploration Hub. Thank you for this opportunity.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are
How
things
was
at
the
your mind,
week?
Nagesh?
Yeah, good. So, currently, sir, the time is hectic, little bit, lot of work, you know. So I spend too much time at work, and then weekends remains also busy. So my audience also know that some of the episodes are coming delayed now, but it's fine now. Audience will accept this. So yeah, that's all. And glad to see you after after some time. We normally meet in
Yes,
GTR, you know, and yeah,
yes,
so GTR is happening again. So to my audience, what is a GTR? So GTR is one of the biggest conference in India where testing professional and specifically agile testing professionals meet and discuss on various topics. So I'm pretty much sure this year Harpreet is going to present something new today, new, as well as I will be also there. So I also have some plan to present in GTR this year. So yeah, let's see. So good to have you on this podcast, and so again
it's
we
equally
have,
my pleasure.
yeah, and we on purpose. So I had a discussion with Harpreet, long time back. I discussed this idea to have you on this podcast, even though she is very technical person. She's working in a technical environment with performance coding and thresholds and tools and techniques. But as a agile professional, I feel you know incorporating performance in agile environment is very challenging, yeah, because the iterative nature of it and the small duration cycle and audit. When I used to do performance testing way back in 2011, 2012, we largely worked in waterfall, where the environment or the application was pretty much stable. After that, we used to start performance. I know that's not a correct practice. It should be involved at the towards the start, but that's how it should be. And then at that time, I used to work on JMeter. One of the tool I saw on Harpreet's LinkedIn is VSTS Ultimate. Not many people have worked on that tool, and to be honest, one of the best tool that I have worked on. So we are discussing so many things today. Let's get on to our discussion. So Harpreet, share your journey so far. How you enjoy doing this performance engineering, performance testing.
Sure, Nagesh. I come with 18 plus years experience now and completely into performance testing and engineering. And I've seen the journey and how the industry has changed. Like earlier, as you mentioned, it was waterfall. Now we have Agile. In fact, what the World Quality Reports says is 99% of projects now are working in Agile. And what more to actually add to it is that the things are getting revolutionized further with the CI/CD thing in picture and the Gen
Hmm.
AI. So these are the some latest things which I am also working on. But the methodology, agile, and performance testing is definitely an interesting topic. I'll be happy to share my experience on this topic, and uh, happy to share and something which people can put to use, right? Some experience that I bring in from the recent project and some past projects as well. And I've seen what kind of implementation, wherein initially how the agile was and that mindset change that has happened now recently with the awareness that has created uh, and for both kind of projects like TNM projects and fixed bid project, how it was. So I'll be
Right.
happy to share my knowledge.
Okay. Now, I'm pretty much sure you bring a lot of knowledge and lot of experience. That's true. So let's get on to this topic. So now, um, personally, I have worked in waterfall when I was a tester. So I know how this performance testing was integrated into my project. But if I want to integrate performance engineering in agile development workflow or agile development environment, what should the things or factors taken into the consideration? What strategy should be applied?
Sure. So integrating uh, performance testing in an agile workflow, right? So that requires uh, to start early because the fundamental of agile says quick feedback on the cycle, SDLC cycle that we are giving. Obviously, performance is one part of it. So this requires we can actually focus on shift left performance testing, which is early performance testing. But the foundation sprint, it plays a very crucial role. This is why a performance architect should be onboarded at that time.
Okay.
And during that time, the person will collaborate with different stakeholders to actually understand the non functional requirements. Then, the kind of environment that you are having, is it a replica of production or not? And then, if it's a scale down environment, then what is the kind of load that you can actually generate in this kind of environment? Then to establish a cadence with the stakeholders. Now,
Hmm.
the agile sprints can span from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, right?
Right.
And then we need to know what piece of work can be completed if it's a 2 week agile sprint. So during that initial phase, the technology stack, architecture, all these things need to be understood well
Hmm.
to actually define a sprint backlog. And accordingly, our sprints can have performance testing included. And if I talk about performance testing, generally, if we see, it can be for an existing application or
Hmm.
it can be for a new application, right?
Right.
Which we are doing from scratch. But if it's an existing application which is live in production, or we are migrating, or we are having some optimizations done on that, then at least you can leverage the legacy data for your non-functional requirement. Because
Agree.
initially, what we have seen is the hand holding is required in some of the projects, especially with defining the non-functional requirement. It can be as vague as in one of the projects where it would say that I just need a response time of a particular microservice as within 200 milliseconds, but for how many
Hmm.
users in what kind of an environment? These are open-ended, right? So if you keep such loose threads and then from which geographic location your users are accessing. So all these things we have to work with client, define it. And the definition of done for each sprint and all those things are important. So that is what I would say, that starting early, and there is much more to it. Like, and we can
Hmm.
after understanding the architecture, the kind of implementation, we can have performance engineering integrated in our agile workflow.
Okay. So you briefly touch based on starting early and then
Right,
having a stakeholder communication. That's true. We need that. And why we need that, you also explain it. Okay. But
right.
now, how do you prioritize these activities of performance testing? In terms of do you create stories, or do you have something like non-functional requirement being captured and written in format of story for each sprint.
Yes. So in Agile, we generally people use Jira, and
Hmm.
we have other collaboration tools as well. That depends which changes from project to project. And in Agile, there are two approaches for performance testing. Either I can have a in sprint performance testing. Okay,
Mhm.
that depends on the technology stack, the complexity of protocol which you have picked up. Is it feasible to do in that particular time frame?
Hmm.
And the second approach is, which is you do as a sprint n minus one performance system, which
Hmm.
means a code base of a previous sprint, which would be little stable, which you can consider for performance testing. So in both these approaches, the preferred one is n minus one,
Right.
wherein people prefer that particular approach for a reason that the code base is quite stable.
Hmm.
But if suppose if you take ServiceNow or some SaaS product where the build deployment way it works is different. So in that case, you can have uh, but in sprint automation as well.
Hmm.
Those features are ready. You can go ahead and test that using different performance testing tools. Right tool selection is also an important criteria. At the start, during the foundation sprint when we are going ahead, or the early sprints which we are where we have architect. So
Hmm.
understanding what we have for performance testing, what do we have for performance monitoring, because the trend says that today we have to have both the kind of tools, which is since it's performance engineering that we are talking. To drill down to bottleneck, we require additional metrics to see what's going on at the architecture level. The traditional one just limited to some CPU utilization, memory utilization, or in the infrastructure utilization, and some metrics which the tool is producing. But
Hmm.
now it goes beyond. Now we have to look at different aspects, the geographic locations from
Right.
where we are simulating the load. And with the SaaS, I think where your servers are hosted, and same in your architecture also, it can be from different geographic location, different devices. So we cannot skip on devices. If you don't have more of desktop users, you have a mobile user base, then the prioritization and the importance needs to be given to mobile. So all these things, you have to work with the team, get the access to these tools. If it's database, then in that case, since I was dealing with some microservices architecture, I requested them to give me access for performance insights, which comes
Hmm.
along with CloudWatch. So because a log insights might just give some information on this is the issue that we are seeing, but where exactly and if the queries are spending more time, how much time more is being spent on the query, the longest running queries. So traditionally we had AWR report, but it was not frequently used, right? But we are moving towards profiling. Now even we capture JFR snapshots, wherein some profiling can be done. And we can actually talk about, yes, this is the issue. Though the profiling is not done for the entire duration of test, but the slicing that we do, we get to know a lot of issues. So that's
Hmm.
how I would say the prioritization happened. And initially, if I look at the product backlog, the features that are ready,
Huh.
first we test them. And then as the regression follows, the new features get tested. Along with that, the old ones should also be stable. And this is why we require CI/CD implementation along with our agile thing. So both goes hand in hand. If we have our scripts which are robust and they are developed with all best practices, we'll be able to have a CI/CD driven performance testing even in the agile work.
Right. I was actually about to come to that point where the integration is required, because if we now we are talking about agile Scrum teams, so we are not talking about one team here. We talking about sometimes there are 100 teams. So code to be need to be integrated. This sprint cycle should be aligned, and then when you talk about n minus one, that code was integrated and working properly. Then only you can do your performance engineering on top of that. Also the data test data that you required for that also should be available. So a lot of factors into the consideration. So great, these are some of the really awesome, so much to learn to our audience here. Moving on. So, can you give some examples, where the performance metrics relevant to agile teams?
Right. So I would say one is when we look at performance testing and where we have metrics. The
Hmm.
typical metrics that we capture is response time as per the SLA and, that has been decided in the non-functional requirement, error rate, throughput, and failure rate, right? The overall failure, and then health of our servers and other metrics. Along with this, the agile metrics, we would say the defects that you're logging,
Hmm.
because as soon as the issue is identified, the next step we do is to log a defect and then trying to understand how much time it takes to fix that defect.
Hmm.
So all these metrics, some agile specific metrics are along with our uh, issues which we have identified, performance bottleneck that is decided. Some bottlenecks are quick fix, which can be taken within sprint, but not all performance defects can be fixed in a particular sprint.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in that, the product backlog gets reprioritized as to depend after understanding how much effort is required. And this is where after performance test, there is an exercise we do is performance tuning,
Right.
and then after that we wherein it's a we might have working sessions with our developers on screen sharing, on not just developers, third party also many a times. So because it's their system which is taking more time, say especially on the login bit of it, right? OAuth or something, the way it is integrated, where our API is integrated, and there are some prerequisites that we do wherein we bypass the multi-factor authentication. So all these things, collaboration is where it takes time.
Hmm.
But in typically, if we look at things, these are the metrics that we capture, which is which we get from the tools,
Hmm.
and then whatever for the agile methodology which we are following using a collaboration tool, we use both as a KPI.
Okay. You briefly mentioned about bottlenecks. So, can some of the examples of bottlenecks can you share?
Sure. So, talking about identifying bottlenecks, it is now not kept towards the end, like after
Hmm.
I do a concurrent load. Now, the beauty of this agile is if I have just a feature develop or just a page develop or a API develop, if you see for with one user, say it on a postman also, if you see the response time is high, then obviously with multiple users, we'll not be able to meet SLA of 200 millisecond or 3 second, whatever that has been decided in agreement with client. So early feedback at the page level can also be given, and also at the API level. So we don't have to wait for the entire story or to be ready. The component level testing starts first, and then we go ahead with entire business scenario which is developed. So the bottlenecks that were identified, I'll talk about the recent experience. Uh, when we start with capturing the front end metrics using our
Okay.
developer mode of Chrome, if it's a page level. And with that, you have different tabs. You have network tab, you have a lighthouse report, performance summary tab, which gives a lot of information whether the caching is working or not.
Hmm.
Then, if the page requires some compression, the size of the page. So there are a lot of metrics, even at the one user level, which we can give much before we actually go ahead and log a defect with concurrent users.
Hmm.
So we can start logging defect, and wherein we can work with the developers to let them know that the image compression is required, or maybe we will let them know the page size is quite heavy. Cleanup is required on that page, when it's loading with some uh, incorrect requests which are not getting through, or those are redundant requests which are not required, how the redirections are doing. So all these things we give early. Now
Hmm.
talking about the concurrent request test which we might have done, with that, uh, the infrastructure capability. A lot of times, if we start seeing some 500 related errors, say in one of the projects we saw gateway issue, and
Right.
in another we saw that the 503 service unavailable we were getting, because at this point of time the infrastructure is not able to take a load even with as less as 15 concurrent users, right?
Hmm.
Eventually, it might scale to 100. 300 or 1,000, whatever that requirement is. So it's in an incremental way we start collecting information, starting with one user, moving to the concurrent users with less users, and then testing in isolation, and then having the entire suite tested together. Because we focus on CRUD scenarios: create, retrieve, update, and delete.
Delete. Yeah.
Generally, if you're just going with creation, it might sound fine, right? And even with creation, we have seen such issues wherein, uh, because the create scenario, there was one project where the data which we are using, we asked the developer, is it fine? We can reuse it. They mentioned yes, these many users, and we can create that. Now, what happens is in the backend, it was fetching a lot of data. Okay, it's a history of a patient record which was getting fetched. Now, when it's getting fetched, and I'm creating a record, obviously, even with one user, now the transaction time had got increased, because it's just an addition kind of a transaction we were doing during the initial regression. Then we had to request for additional set of data, because initially we requested, then it was mentioned that the data can be reused, but it had some performance implication. And then we got the unique set of data, and then we could proceed with our test. So because this required analysis using some of the SAPT codes to see, even with one user, uh, how much the transaction time is going on. So there are some T codes that we have. So with the technology stack, the things change and analysis change. And it had been a wonderful journey. I didn't find the bottlenecks. And it's interesting every time. Sometimes it's deadlock, server-side rendering deadlocks that we see. Then for one of the microservices related application, we saw many issues, because API, though it's an easily available initially when you're testing, right? But for one user, it might work well. Response time is one factor. But when you check them in a concurrency with different records, data sets, data being the most important role as it is in production, we see that the response time has deteriorated, because the query requires optimization. Some indexing was missing. So then there's a lot of work done. And with that, some performance optimizations which are applied. Then we have to ensure that the functionality has not got disturbed with the
Agree.
optimization done.
Absolutely.
So these things happen while we work on identifying bottlenecks using some APM tools and our tools which we have for performance testing. But it goes beyond. We also work with our functional team to let them know, just to ensure that in the recent build, hopefully the functionality has not been tweaked. It's
Right.
not breaking.
Good one. Yeah. See, you brought the topic of performance optimization, So after discussing all this technical, I'll bring back to some agile terms and all that. So agile, the key factor or key component of agile framework or agile working way of agile working is one of them is collaboration. So how do you collaborate with either with developers or even with the stakeholders in terms of to optimize this performance? You gave one factors that yeah you promptly or you in advance you communicate with them and inform them. Let's check whether this functionality is not impacting. But what other factors you take consideration when you improve or try to collaborate with these stakeholders?
Sure. So we have different Scrum ceremonies which are followed, which is
Right.
daily stand up. Then we also have grooming session initially, then the sprint review, sprint retrospective. So all these things are leveraged. Along with that, for collaboration, we have some working sessions which are adopted.
Hmm.
Now, these can be because we have identified an issue, and Agile emphasizes on uh, working with the collaboration and quickly resolving issues, right? So we get on a call, have the screen sharing done. In a working session, we might just initiate or repeat a test, or maybe just provide them additional inference or give them a walkthrough of result. So Scrum calls, we generally highlight that this is the status. What are the impediments? We are blocked at something. Like if there is a ticket opened with a SaaS provider, which is still awaiting a response. So
Mm-hmm.
those will go as an impediment. We are not able to proceed with a higher load test, right? So that, and there are many other impediments which can be related to environment, which can be related to test data, or maybe purging the test data after the test, because otherwise we might end up adding a lot of data in a lower environment or scale down environment which would be provided. So those kind of things we discussed before we go ahead with the next test, and all stakeholders needs to be informed. There is a defined schedule, like the timing of the runs, it's decided. And uh, and if there are some long runs that we are doing, like endurance test, so we
Mm-hmm.
don't do it during business hours. We
Absolutely.
do it in
Mm.
off hours that can be scheduled. So these are the steps that we take for collaboration, to ensure the minimal impact, even in the lower environment, before things happen in production, because that's how we save on cost and business reputation. I think the recent example we all saw yesterday, when we
Yesterday,
had
yes.
Microsoft outage, and uh, and because of the CrowdStrike thing, the patch update, and it blocks so many things. So that's how things are required to be
Yes,
tested
yes.
before.
So see to this our audience, and see, this is how these daily scrum or additional sessions has to be leveraged to collaborate with your teams. I, even though as an experienced Scrum Master, I observed that people don't leverage such things. They still be they still um, you know uh, depend on emails or chat communication instead of coming face to face or discussing or bringing it in the daily Scrum. Very good that you and your team is doing this one. So I just want to hear now some success stories. Hmm. You
Sure.
are working in Agile, you're working in Agile, your team is Agile. Maybe something like you are working with a distributed team where your team members are sitting somewhere outside India. Some success story where you have this performance engineering in Agile environment and project like went wow.
Sure. So I think there are many success stories, but I like to bring one of the initial years when I worked on. It was a big data related environment, and it was a platform which was built for. Uh, it was more in the media and entertainment domain, wherein some campaigns are being launched, and then the
Mhm.
end users, they would actually have those alerts going. Just to give an example, as we know, that suppose if somebody has done a shopping of a particular product, right? So all these things goes into big data, and then accordingly the campaign alerts are issued that there is a sale which is going on in a particular region, right? So this application did that, wherein it was a very interesting application, because it was nice to see how the segmentation of audience happened and everything, and it properly followed the agile ceremonies. And if there is a performance defect identified in a sprint, it's a
Mm.
sprint pick. Then if there is a call that we will have to understand in when we are going to include and fix this. And one of the major issues that we had identified was for the login part. Login was taking around 19 seconds.
Oh.
But nobody was able to understand why it's taking 19 seconds, because the test data that was provided, it had a lot of roles associated with it,
Mm.
and those roles in production, we don't require those many roles, right? It's a blend of all these roles. So there was a lot of optimization done in the roles, the query optimization, to bring it down from 19 seconds to 3 seconds. And then that was one of the issues identified. And we had a successful launch. And in the same project, after the initial test, which was done, we had used JMeter for that.
Mm.
We also used Jenkins, since it was a CI/CD driven uh, engagement where everything will go into regression. So our UI scripts were made to run with the API scripts. And we had enhanced it and optimized it to an extent where it was a hands-free kind of thing. One click, an entire suite used to run with every build changes. And we used to be aware if it's a pass or a fail. In fact, the test data preparation process was also automated. The framework was developed to automatically generate the results from our Jenkins. in the workspace and all. And then if there are some issues, we
Hmm.
have Scrum of Scrum,
Right.
wherein so there we used to report and highlight these issues, especially when working with multiple developers and multiple teams. So this is where you need not be part of all the Scrum status with the developers, but if you have something to highlight and important, you can attend those scrums, highlight in the developer scrums also to understand when the story will be picked up for fixation. And the testing scrum was different. So it was very well managed and great learning experience in for such a big project. And it was an onshore offshore model, a USA based headquarter in which. So
Nice,
that was
nice,
a
great.
success story.
Nice. Now, the world is changing, you know. So we are like bringing AI also into the consideration. So AI is pretty much fast so far. Another thing is we are dealing with lot of mobile users. You know, everyone wants everything on the mobile phones. Yeah. So, and again, there are like thousands of different type of operating systems. You know, so on mobile also, Android have multiple version, yeah, iOS. So how do you keep up with this kind of such a change which is bringing coming into our industry when you are dealing with performance related issues?
Yes. So with the changes in the industry trend, we actually understand how we need to optimize and refine our existing processes.
Hmm.
Like the Gen AI, if we use, there are many tools which are available, but if we use the one which is ChatGPT and Gemini, which are widely used as an open AI tools, it has actually reduced the time in many ways.
Hmm.
Uh, the power of LLM that we are having, right? So with that, it gives a lot of information in just small time.
Hmm.
And various use cases for having the Gen AI with performance testing, it includes from planning till execution to reporting. So in different stages, we are having the Gen AI use cases and to bring down the time for our script creation, especially in the early performance testing. Then for the front end metrics that we are collecting, and then test plan creation and reporting. So I think that is revolutionizing the entire industry. And even our tool partners and they are making a lot of research in this space using AI inputs. That is one thing which is, and we have to keep ourselves abreast with the changes. If there is a new protocol that has been introduced, then we need to get familiarized with those protocols and
Agree.
give those
Yes.
solutions. As you mentioned about mobile, so mobile is something traditionally we just did for the backend thing,
Hmm.
which was just the API being tested, and along with that, the servers are put to load with mobile headers and everything, and then we used to capture the metrics from the either from the tools, emulators, and all. The traffic used to be captured, or maybe if we have a handheld device, we'll see the responsiveness of that. But now the industry has changed. We have got tools like some of the commercial tools where the device farm is available. If we leverage those device farms, and all these things come for cost, depends on what strategy that we would want to. So when we go to client, we let them know on different approaches. Like it can be a device level, it can be server level testing that we want to,
Hmm.
and with different network because when working with smartphones and all, the network plays a very important role. So all these
Agree.
things can be simulated, analyzed, and shared with clients. So if and accordingly we proceed with our approach.
Great. Great discussion so far. So just want to hear your views, or you know there are, you must be already getting few calls from friends, colleagues, or from LinkedIn or somewhere. You know, people are want to grow in their career. Hmm. So I get many calls. So I'm doing testing from so many years. I don't know anything about non-functional testing. I don't know about test automation, and they seek some advice from us, people like you and me. But specifically, if a person wants to make a career in testing, performance engineering, what type of advices you will give?
I would like to say two things which matter a lot is analysis, analysis skill which matter, and never give up attitude. Because analysis is something where a lot of people stop their analysis with just the metrics which are published by the tool without correlating these things with different graphs, trying to probe what required to be fixed, working with the team to understand what has been fixed. Then only it has a learning curve. So learning a tool has become easy these days because of a lot of information available over internet. But analysis is something which I feel each person should focus on. This is where it adds value, and this is where that team can actually reduce the time for investigation if you have put in your expertise to give them the right feedback or area which are seeing where we are seeing the majority of issues happening. That is one thing. And never give up, because a lot of times we feel that we have reached a dead end, right? We might be stuck with any complex issues which we are not able to crack. It can be a correlation issue, scripting issue, or maybe few things within our timeline. Holding the things at that time, because project might be at a critical phase, and taking ownership of the task, that is something which is required. That is a piece of advice I would give to the all the generation who want to pursue their career into performance testing, because performance testing with respect to tools sound easy now, but a lot of time when it hits challenges, that is when you reach out to help, or maybe people call out for help quite late, and this is why it results in loss of time and business and reputation.
That's true. That's true. It was very, very nice talking to you, Harpreet. And it was pleasure to have you on the Agile Exploration Hub. To my viewers, again, it's not the first time or the only time Harpreet is here. If you like the video, please share with your friends. Do post your questions, comments in the video. I will share the contact details of Harpreet, LinkedIn details in the description, so you can connect with her. Uh, there's so much to learn from her, and she's very approachable. I can, I just sent her one message and she said immediately, "Let's do it, Nagesh." But we had both. She had her project deliverables. I had my project deliverables. So the episode was delayed, but now it will be live to you. So, and again, please subscribe to my channel, and thanks. So once again, thanks a lot, Harpreet. Thanks for being the
Thank you so
such a one,
much.
and see you soon.
Thank you for this opportunity. It was pleasure discussing on some of the important topics when somebody is working in an agile environment and want to make a career with performance testing. I hope it helps and reaches to people who are keen to pursue a career in this. Thank you so much, Nagesh, for this opportunity.
Pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thank you all. Thanks.
Bye.